And good morning, everyone. We are back, and as we nearly always do on a Friday morning at about 8:07, we've got Scott Braddock on line one. Good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
You're there. How are things in your world?
Things are good in my world. President Trump, and I would say this about any president, by the way, if they came to town.
You what now?
Thankfully, President Trump is gone.
Yeah.
From Austin,
Yeah.
because whether it was Obama, Trump, Bush, whoever, if they come to town, they just destroy traffic.
Yeah, I didn't live in Austin.
Yeah.
Well, Scott,
I didn't-
traffic is already destroyed. I heard that's the worst traffic city in America.
Absolutely. It's one of the only places in the entire country. I live close to Mopac here, one of the big freeways. It's the only big freeway I can think of anywhere that I've lived or visited where during rush hour, traffic is stopped in both directions. And one of my friends joked here that maybe the solution was just for everybody to swap houses.
Yeah. Well, that way you don't have to drive as far.
It's possible.
Yeah. I'll give you my house if you'll give me yours. We'll be closer to work.
Yeah.
No.
There you go.
So let
Short
me
commutes.
let me. I'll tell you. I lived in Austin back. I didn't live there when Trump was president, but I did when Obama was president, and he came into town. My wife, we lived off of I-35. My wife worked at Dell Children's, and so she would have to drive. And that day, I think that everybody was late. And she's a nurse. Being late is not a good thing, but what can you do? I mean, when every way of getting from one destination to another is a parking lot, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad, and they have refused to do the kinds of things in Austin you would do to alleviate traffic.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, they need to start working, and they're doing some, but moving stuff east and west. Everything's north and south, and so everybody has to find a way to get north or south.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the debate years ago, I think going back to the 70s, was similar to some of the other debates happening in other big cities in Texas or cities that were on track to be big cities. And in the 70s, the argument from the liberal left, imagine this, was that if you build a loop around Austin, like they have in just about every other big city, in Dallas, Houston, Lubbock,
Lubbock.
The liberals said, if you build a loop, then people will move here. so they didn't build a loop, but guess what? People have moved here. Anyway. So we're just left without.
Well, Scott, let's do talk about get down to some politics here.
Sure.
One thing that I see, you sent us some talking points this morning about the Chick-fil-A story, and you say the company decided to stop donating to groups, and it's drawn criticism over the years. I had that story yesterday, but there's an online story this morning from The Resurgent. Now, you can take that for whatever it's worth, but they're saying that this was all a made-up deal, that Chick-fil-A, in fact, is increasing their amount of they're giving away more money in 2020 than they have in 19, and they're still giving to organizations, and this is something that has just been that the liberal left has thrown up and kind of made up about them. Are you up to speed on that?
What I had seen from a couple of different sources was that, number one, they were pulling back on some of their contributions, which, of course, as you said, have been sort of controversial. And then I saw some stories that said that the fast food chain was not ruling out continuing some of those contributions to the Salvation Army and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Who knows? Maybe they floated a trial balloon. Maybe the company is wanting to get out of the sort of the crosshairs of the spotlight, of controversy. At some point, most companies, no matter who they are and what their leadership is, they don't really want to be political. Most companies don't.
Right.
When you talk to, for example, people who are not representing, but people who are sort of in the orbit of the company Whataburger. Do you remember when they put out an announcement that said that people should not openly carry their weapons inside their stores?
Yeah, I do.
Even after the Texas legislature had said that would be legal in this state, the legislature did leave it up to private businesses to decide whether they wanted that in their own stores, which I think a lot of conservatives agree with that. There's also a private property rights thing there. But look, they didn't want to be political because guess what? They want to serve hamburgers, and just like over at Chick-fil-A, they want to sell chicken sandwiches to everybody. They want to sell to Democrats, Republicans. Guess what? All that money spends the same. And
I actually feel like Whataburger actually did that the best way they could, which was they did a public statement of please don't do this, but they never put up a 30-7 sign, even though they could have just done that.
Yeah, and look, it's not where they want to be controversial or they don't want to be political. I had some very conservative friends of mine say, look, why do these companies give to charity at all? And their point was, isn't the point of the company to make money? If the individuals at the company want to give money to these charities, that's fine, and no one would tell them what to do. And I don't think anybody would have any leg to stand on if they tried. But you have to imagine they've gotten a little tired of being controversial at Chick-fil-A, because guess what? They're making hand over fist over there, and they want to make more.
Well, but get this, though. In 2018, Chick-fil-A has revenues of $10 billion, and they donated.
Right, I think they're fine.
They donated just under 0.02% of revenues.
So,
yeah,
but Scott, what I was going to say is that you got to understand, as a corporation. Now, I know that Kathy, the original owner, he died recently, and so other people are taking over. But as a corporation, even the Supreme Court says that a corporation has the same rights as an individual to give money away, and a lot of people create organizations. Or want to be charitable and see their organization that they've built as a way to be charitable. So, I mean, I understand that, but I guess my thoughts are that Republicans, they get mad at the Democrats when they come out and tell people how to spend their money. In other words, the Democrats came out and got mad at Chick-fil-A, and you heard all the stuff from their donations, their Christian values or whatever. But then at the same time, the Republicans are coming out and getting mad at Chick-fil-A when they decide not to do it. And in the end, my opinion is that politicians just need to stay out of the company's business and let them do what they're doing.
Yeah, it's definitely a double standard. It's all dependent on whose ox is being gored. Do you agree with the people or not? The whole point of the Chick-fil-A bill during the legislative session, to your point, Matt, is that the Republicans who supported the bill were saying the company ought to be able to do basically whatever they want to with their donations, and that they shouldn't suffer any consequences as a result. And so the people who are blasting them now, it rings kind of hollow to me.
Yeah. Well, in the end, the whole, and this is what I said, the whole thing with the San Antonio Chick-fil-A thing, that would have all worked its way out, because the guy from San Antonio got absolutely destroyed by a massive amount of people that were unhappy with the way he handled that. And the state of Texas didn't necessarily have to get involved in that.
We've got this other story here about Speaker Dennis Bonnen. He claims that he can't remove the chairman of the Texas Homeland Security Committee after he was caught with cocaine. What's all this about?
Yeah, we talked about the story last week. Of course, just a crazy situation with Homeland Security Chairman Poncho Navarez, who's from South Texas, getting caught with an envelope, full of baggies of cocaine. And in the meantime, some Republicans have raised the question, should he be in charge of a committee that oversees the Department of Public Safety? It deals with border security, et cetera. And the Speaker of the House, at the end of last week, sent a note to those Republican chairmen who asked the question about whether he ought to be removed as chairman. The Speaker said, well, I can't do that. I don't have the authority to do that. We outlined at quorumreport.com the fact that there's a robust debate about whether he can. The rules do not explicitly say that he can't take that chairman out of that position. And Chairman Phil King, a Republican from Weatherford, who at one point was running for Speaker of the House, by the way, he had told us at Quorum Report that, look, a couple of things. One, in King's estimation, he does have the ability to remove that chairman, who, by the way, basically admitted to the crime and said that there was no one to blame but himself, which we talked about that last week. And King said that not only does he have the ability to remove him as chairman, Bonnen has that ability, but let's say that King is wrong. This was a quote from Chairman King. He said, even if I'm wrong, and I'm not, why doesn't he just ask him to step down? What would be the harm in that? And by the way, if he tried to strip him of the chairmanship and there was any disagreement about whether he could, in this specific circumstance, no one can imagine that anybody would tell the Speaker he can't do that. You probably don't want somebody who's basically admitted to a felony to be in charge of a committee that's in charge of law enforcement.
But let me ask you this. So the committee when is the committee going to meet again?
That's not determined just yet. The chairman can call the committee to order.
Potentially not again until the elections, though.
That's possible. A chairman. Well, let me say it this way.
Well,
it's at the discretion of the chairman. When the committee meets, is at the discretion of the chairman. They could meet whenever he said.
He's not running for re-election.
He's running for re-election. Yeah.
And if he doesn't call any more meetings, I mean, really, I can't see where this should necessarily be a big deal. Just because, overall the legislators only meet every 2 years. No policies are going to be made necessarily between now and then, and definitely none will be written into law. I mean, is it really that big of a deal?
I'll make one point about that, which is that even when the legislature is not in session, the committees still do get together and study issues, and the reason they do that is because, we have a legislature which, as you point out, only meets for 140 days every 2 years. That, in and of itself, that regular session is not enough time to really put together the kind of policies that make sense for a state of about 30 million people. So they do get together and look at these issues and start to craft what will be the beginnings of policy proposals for various issues, including these things that would be dealt with by Homeland Security. So not having a chairman in place, it's just not a good idea, especially when you could go ahead and fix it.
Hey, Scott, we got to run, man. We're up against the clock. It's been interesting visiting this morning, as it always is, every Friday. And, of course, Scott is the publisher, or I guess you're the publisher of the quorumreport.com.
Yeah, everybody should check it out, quorumreport.com.
There you go. All right, it is 8:19. We'll do a quick break and be right back and close out Friday's edition of Dave and Matt in the Morning on KFYO.